Right.
Yep.
You're listening to the Jay Bird Watching Podcast, the official podcast of jaysjournal.com and fansided.com, where we discuss all things Toronto Blue Jays baseball. We'll talk about news, rumors, and game recaps. So whether you're a diehard fan or just getting started with the team, this is the podcast for you. Here is your host, Craig Borden, with co-hosts Jason Lyons and me, Ken Alfred. You're listening to the Jay Bird Watching Podcast.
Good evening, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to another evening of Jay Bird Watching. To that point, it's been a very odd week in Blue Jays baseball because we all went from literally bitching and to nothing happening to getting a couple of weird moves. And here we are. We got one of the better free agent pitchers, and winter meetings hopefully laid the groundwork for some good things to come. But there's also a few elephants in the room that we're going to have to talk about. But gentlemen, Ken, Jason, how are we doing this evening?
Doing all right. How you guys doing?
Fantastic. Couldn't be more excited. I mean,
Mr. I'm going on vacation to somewhere warm.
Oh, yeah. It's already Christmas, baby.
There it is.
Or on another holiday that may suit you, your religion or whatever. You know,
Hanukkah,
there it is.
It's a holiday. It's a holiday lion.
Holiday lion.
At least it's not like a holiday liger. Lion tiger. Or like we were making the goof as like an Anchorman moment here that 60% of the time it works all the time.
Love that movie.
Christmas Panther.
So Christmas Panther. It sounds like the next model. That's Anchorman 3, right? They did the regular Anchorman, then they did the falling out story, and now they have the Christmas one, just like the Harold and Kumar movies, right?
Yeah.
Are they making Anchorman 3? Are you guys messing me?
No, I'm just busting.
I was like,
I'm just saying, you gotta follow the model. That's how stupid movies go.
I know.
Everything
I have the
is
first
good.
two. I don't want to miss it.
And then they have the redemption story.
Yeah.
Or if you're in a Seth Rogen movie, that happens all throughout the hour and a half, and it's
true.
Just how it is.
Buzzing.
Bang. So, anyways, boys, like I said, it was the winter meetings over the last. We saw the fallout, and then we recorded near the end of the winter meetings. But to that point, we are now post winter meetings, and I would say what happened at the winter meetings was very uneventful for Blue Jays fans. While everybody and their brother got the best major league contracts on the face of the planet. It seemed like it was a hotbed for free agents, not a ton of trades, which is usually what happens more at the winter meetings. Jason, lay it out for me. How are you feeling post winter meetings before any of the other news? Because
let's leave the Blue Jays aside because
no, they did that to themselves.
Talk about that. I need to get a hammer and I need to put my hand out here and just start. So, across the league, I think there were some good deals, and I think there were some really questionable ones. Correa signs for a ton of money in San Francisco, and there's better shortstops and second basemen that are available and out there, and they can play that position. The fact that Dansby Swanson hasn't been picked up by somebody is jackassery. It's insanity.
Send him our way. Sorry.
Bogarts cashes in. A lot of these guys who probably deserved some of the cake they got it, which is awesome. But in retrospect, when you look at some of these monsters, I think what's his name, the outfielder for the Astros, put it perfectly when he said, "Oh, maybe I should have struck out 150 times and had a sub 200 batting average so I could get paid." It's the truth.
It was Alvarez that said that, right?
No, it was the outfielder for the Astros. Reddick.
Yeah, Reddick. Yep, Josh Reddick. Yep.
So it's there. Some of them are good. Some of them are bad. I like the fact that the Yankees got kicked in the shins with that Judge deal. That cripples them to do anything else, although they just seem to have no end of money. But that being said, there was so much stuff that went on in those few days. Again, some good, some bad. But as a Jays fan, in doing this, it was really, 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 really hard to just watch the dots come off the board in order and just be like, how are they not involved in this, or how are they not closer in this? But then it kind of takes me back to, I read a quote. Alex Manoah was sort of having an argument with a guy on Twitter about, people not wanting to come to Canada. I mean, maybe he's not far off. Like maybe there are players that look at this and say, I don't want to go up there. They don't know enough about Canada to know that Toronto's a nice city and that the Jays fans are insanely passionate. Or maybe they do and they want to go somewhere like Anaheim where no one gives a crap.
True.
Like, I don't know.
Float under the radar. Float under the radar pretty much, right? And because Toronto fans are a passionate bunch, regardless of sports, regardless how bad our teams could be, they're always going to cheer for Toronto, right? So I was going to bring that up to say, is that why we were not getting some of the big moves that happened over the GM meeting? Because it seemed to me that our management seemed to actually have gone to, where was it, Florida?
Everybody.
No, San Diego. Wasn't it?
San Diego, California. Yeah. I think did they really just want to go there just to hang out? Is that basically what it was?
Too many beers by the pool.
I don't know.
Because I was thinking, all right, we're going to hear something, just something, right? But it was crickets. And like you said, Jason brought up a good point. Is it location? Do they not believe in the team that's there? Because I mean, we're one of the most offensive teams in the last season. So you'd think we have a lot of offense in there. What's the deal?
Yeah,
I think the thing that kills me the most is before going into the winter meetings, the Jays were picked to be a contender for the World Series. Post that, if you look at their power rankings, the Jays dropped down below teams that we should be hammering. And it's all because of complacency. And I haven't said that a lot about this organization in the last number of years. They seem to have been decently aggressive and trying to make moves and trying to make things happen. But I don't know. I thought Mattingly would have a little bit of clout. I thought, there are parts of it that people would be attracted to. And it just seems like, unless there's some sort of blockbuster that we don't know about that is coming and they've had to wait on that to let the pieces fall into place.
There better be something falling into place.
Yeah, and we'll all be eating a slice of humble pie. But I mean, to this point right now, that's my call for what's happened so far.
Yeah, and to that point, and this is what I thought was adding insult to the injury on that whole thing. The winter meetings end with this Kevin Kiermaier guy that Blue Jays fans best know for being a giant jackass and stealing a piece of paper in a playoff game that Alejandro Kirk dropped off, which was actually the pitching notes and the plan of how they were going to attack the Rays hitters during that game.
Oh, that was him?
Yep.
It was him. Really? So this is why I'm in the table flip mode. I hate the fucker. I hate him when he was just stealing words from Kevin Pillar, and then he does that. I think I made the joke in our chat the other day. I will bet you guys $20 that he doesn't even make it out of spring training healthy. And I'm a firm believer in that. It has nothing to do with him as a person or anything. He just has been notoriously hurt over the last 3 seasons. And he doesn't even spell fourth outfielder to me. I thought we had a better fourth outfielder in Ramil Tapia last year. So it doesn't make any sense to me. I disagree with you. Yeah.
He what did he hit? 228 last year? No, 240.
But he's the leader in the locker room, Jason.
Yeah, nobody cares.
I think we have enough of those. Yeah, we have enough of those, I was going to say.
I think it speaks to exactly what you were saying. Like, I mean, a guy like Kiermaier, who, I mean, he gets on base, and for an old coot, he can still, run. But I feel like, it's the same with Correa. Like, I mean, there's a stain on these guys that as soon as you bring them to your team, it's like, ugh, like you don't want to touch them. They're just gross. Like, so it's, I would have left him alone. I would have, started to look at, to Pittsburgh's outfield, or, I know that the Jays kind of crapped the bed with the Cardinals. I think there was a lot of opportunity there.
To that point, that might have been what the Cardinals planned on doing all along. You can't hold them accountable for them turning around and signing Contreras. I mean, but the one thing that kills me about the Kiermaier thing is that happened against what this team's current core is. That playoff thing. That Alejandro Kirk was the catcher in that game. People forget that. He was the one that dropped it, not Jansen. Yeah. Jansen was DHing that game and had 2 home runs. And so, Gurriel Vladdy, Bo, all of it. Everybody that is the core to this team remembers that. Is this hatchet going to get buried in spring training, or is this going to be a festering piece of garbage in the middle of our lineup every week?
That's curious.
And right now, he's our best outfielder playing the third spot. Now we don't have Teoscar, which has got to change because he can't be our starting right or left fielder at this year.
Now, is there anything redeemable about him? Like, could he do anything during the season? Let's say he makes it as a starter. He's going to take center field. The defense that a lot of people say that he has that would benefit the team. Will that, if he actually has a good season, will you guys change? Or is it going to be like, I'm going to be harumphing this until, even if we win the World Series, it's a big harumph for Kiermaier.
I don't think I'm going to have to worry about it. I literally think he won't make it to the lineup. I'm just going to be that guy. I'm not sorry about saying it that way.
The way that I
don't wish hurt on him.
Yeah. The way that I look at it is, I've been a big proponent in, some people you can have redemption. I feel like if it's addressed, like if he is man enough to say something about it, like even preseason, whatever, say, there may have been some bad blood with me, stealing the lineup car, whatever it was, and you could kind of even make a joke out of it. If Kiermaier, his upside is he does have speed. So in the outfield, he can track balls. He hits a ton of doubles, and a doubles hitter is a great hitter. That's why, a guy like Biggio can't stay in the majors because he can't hit doubles. He either hits singles or he gets out. And so it's just not good enough at that level. You have to be able to pump out 30 doubles, if you're going to be in that spot. And so for me, I'm always willing to give somebody redemption when it comes to sports and sometimes the laser focus or glass house we look at them with. So it's all up to you, Kev. Hopefully you're listening. And you know what? How about this? I'll say it right here, right now. If they win the World Series and Kiermaier plays, I'll buy a Kiermaier jersey and happily wear it.
Oh, there it is.
Oh,
but he has to play a game, I assume, would be the caveat on that.
Yes.
All right. So I know I've literally been harping on that point, but if you want for the casual Blue Jay fan that hasn't been paying attention to the rival Tampa Bay Rays over the last, more or less decade at this point, since his first Gold Glove award, which, by the way, that's what you're getting from him. You're getting a glove that is obscenely talented. That is his upside part. So he's won 2 Gold Gloves, and it's amazing that he won it in the time frame that he did here, because he won the Gold Glove in 2016 over Kevin Pillar. Everybody was up in arms, Blue Jays fans, if you recall. So he played 105 games that year. The following year, he played 98. In 2018, he played 88. Then he finally, for the first time in his only one other time in his 10-year career, played over 100 games in 2019. And then at the age of 30, 49, then comes back to 122, and then back to 63 games last year. So he didn't even play half the season this past season.
Yeah.
So the biggest worry, aside from him not being the most offensive strong, but he did, like you said, Jace, he hits a lot of doubles, he gets on base, is the fact that he's very injury prone.
And by the way, he was their outfielder, so he should have been playing 162 games each of those seasons. So really? He's the guy that would have been penciled in all day, every day for the Tampa Bay Rays, because they were paying him like that too. So the fact that he has only eclipsed 100 games, 5 of his 10 years in the major leagues, is quite scary. And that's very weighted toward the first part of his tenure of his career too. He's over 100 games.
Interesting. So here, Zarf, I throw in a comment here. So I'm going to throw in a comment here from Rhonda Armour, who's supposed to be our guest today. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it. She's hopefully going to come next week. Mm-hmm. She's actually a rabid Blue Jays fan, and she was a guest on my podcast, actually. So that's how I kind of chatted to her about it. And I said, "Oh, you like the Blue Jays?" And she's like, "Yeah." Like, hello, I love them, right? When I'm driving to work, I always want to hear, the Fan 590 talk about the Jays. I said, okay, would you ever want to come on talk? She's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. Okay. So hopefully we'll get her in for next week. But I wanted to add the comment that she had about the Kiermaier, but how do you pronounce his name? Kiermaier. All right. So she's like, an acquisition like Kevin Kiermaier is frustrating, as he's frequently hurt and potentially past his prime. always seems like we are hoping these types of players can turn things around once they join the Blue Jays. Just her 2 cents.
She's not far off.
Not far off.
It's just dawned on me from the way that Rhonda laid that whole thing out. The Blue Jays have a habit of doing this over the last few years. And Dexter Fowler, remember, everybody was all like, "Oh, someday this past season, we might get Dexter Fowler up," because they signed him to that minor league deal to hurry up and hope that he crushed it for the Buffalo Bisons, And then next thing you know, he is like deuces and walked out. Yeah. So,
wow.
But this is a major league deal is the other catch too. So he's going to play or he's going to get cut.
Well, I'm one of those guys. I'm starting to get like you, Craig, where I'm really starting to nerd out baseball wise. So if you guys think signing Kiermaier is bad, I was thinking to myself, what's the worst deal I can think of in the last, 10 or 15 years?
Oh God, here it comes.
Now, do you guys know that Chris Davis is starting to receive his deferred payments for the remainder of his contract? So do you guys remember Chris Davis, first baseman for the Orioles?
Crush.
Looked like a stud for about 25 minutes and then just
against the Blue Jays for 2015 and 2016 and then fell off the planet.
So he is set to be paid $9.16 million from 2023 to 2025. $3.5 million from 2026 to 2032, and then $1.5 a year from 2033 to 2037. And the Mets are still paying Bobby Bonilla right now.
That's the best. I don't care what anybody says. That might have been the best Major League Baseball contract in history for both sides, because the Mets got to the playoffs all those years they had Bobby Bonilla, including the Subway Series, the one year against the Yankees.
Yep.
So, if you're deferring that payment for the freaking better part of 3 decades, who cares?
Jason,
$1 million.
Walk me through that. So why is it that they're paying him all this money, like well after the fact? Like you said, 2015, 26. So teams have an option to hold off on paying the players? Is that really?
So he had
a contract written.
Yeah, he had $42 million remaining on his contract. And so the team can defer it any way they want. In baseball, it doesn't count against the salary cap, different than hockey. So
because he's not on the roster,
not on the roster. So they're allowed to take that money out, and then they just cut him, and no one wanted him. So he's going to sit at home for the next 15 years and make $42 million, not doing anything.
He has not played a Major League Baseball game since the early parts of 2020.
Yeah.
Wow, I got to rethink my career goals, man.
Jeez. I know, right?
Me too. Very seriously.
42 million for the next 15 years, and just he can still get a job if he really wants, but maybe just not playing baseball.
There was about a 4-year peak to his career that he might have been the best home run hitter in baseball. You could make that.
I'll give you that.
From 2012, he had 33 home runs in 2012. 13, he had 53. 14, he had 26. He didn't play. He was hitting more doubles that year. So that I'm going to call that a win still, but the down year, and then shot back up to 47 and 38 the following year. So that 5-year window there, like I said, he hit basically his almost 300 career home runs. So
yeah,
it's pretty nuts.
Wow.
Just a little aside
just to
there.
Say. But to that point, before we talk about the good signing we made, why don't we talk free agents gone wild, boys? Because this is what you mentioned a little bit here with contracts and whatnot, and the fact that I would have never in a million years thought Carlos Correa was worth the amount of money he just got on a 13-year deal or something like that.
What inflation? That's all I got to say. What inflation?
What inflation? I don't see this inflation. No stinking inflation. So I think it was $340 over 13 seasons, which is like $26 million a season or something like that.
I've got if you want to know about anybody's, I just pulled up, I've got everybody's exact salary for the year from some of these just asinine monster deals.
Rifle them off, Jason, because like I said, if nobody's been paying attention to Major League Baseball, this is why the Blue Jays haven't signed anybody.
Okay. So
some aggregate.
Let's start with Aaron Judge. So Aaron Judge signs for 9 years, 360. He makes $40 million a year. That's
the reigning MVP and American League home run history champ.
Insane. Correa signed with San Francisco. And, people, if you're watching the National League this year, do not sleep on the Giants. They are going to be a beast.
Sneaky. Yep.
Unbelievably
Sneaky
good.
beast, because their talent on the young side's awesome, too.
Yeah.
And you throw guys like that in.
Correa signs for 13 for 350, is 26.9 a year. Trey Turner signs with Philly for 11 for 300, 27. Oddly enough, his salary is $27,272,727.
Oh my God.
Very specific.
Yeah,
Correa is making more money than Trey Turner, is what you just said to me.
Bogart
that just blows my brain, because looking at the two of them, Trey Turner, without even entering a glimmer of doubt in my head, is the better shortstop.
1,000,000%. and I think that Swanson is better than Correa. I'm taking Dansby Swanson over Correa 8 days a week.
Right now, in the way that the two of them have been over the last 2 years, one's swinging this way and one's swinging that. So Dansby Swanson's tapped into something.
Bogart signs for 11 mil, 280, 25 million a season. Jake DeGrom signs for 5 for 185 million, 37 a season. Brandon Nimmo, if you will, like this guy, what was he making last year? 500 grand.
Damn, you're close to that.
He goes to $20.25 million a year. 20 million.
That's a big race.
Yeah.
That's how good he was the last 3 years.
Jesus Christ.
It's just how it is.
It's crazy. Verlander is making 43 million.
That one doesn't shock me, though, because everybody was ready to pay Verlander a brick of money.
And then we go all the way down to and now I think we could probably talk about this, the Jays' big pickup, Chris Bassitt. 3 years, 63 million, $21 million a year. That is very, very, very tolerable.
Economical.
Yeah. I mean, it's,
Kiermaier was economical too, isn't he? He's only $9 million for a year. Is that right?
Who's that?
Sense. Oh, well, sorry, I said that.
But yeah, I think he's only 1 year, so we'll see. But anyways,
yeah. Well, I mean, and I think that's sort of that. One of the ones that surprised me though was, like if you're just looking at straight up numbers, was Mitch Haniger going to San Francisco again, signed for 14 million, which is a good raise for him, but I expected him to get more and a guy like Bellinger to get less. Even Christian Vasquez signing for 10 million a year. That's a lot of Jake for not a great catcher.
A good defensive catcher.
He's a backup catcher, what he is.
Yeah. So to that point, we're going to get to the catching market. You don't jump ahead in the cliff notes.
All right, I got one more that just came in. All right. Dodgers signed Noah Syndergaard.
Yes, that did just happen about 2-3 hours ago.
Yeah,
that was in this afternoon.
And how much was
doesn't say.
Okay.
That one's that new. But to that point, I think it was a 1 year, 2 year deal, something like that. They haven't said the dollars yet. So, but either way, that was also another arm that I would assume the Blue Jays were checking in on, seeing they were so actively trying to trade for him at the trade deadline this year.
Yeah.
So very, very interesting stuff, Jason. Thank you for rifling through that. But you got to where we were going next anyway. So segue points for you, sir. Chris Bassitt is a Toronto Blue Jay. Welcome to free agent from free agent land to Toronto. And guys, this is a guy that I was honestly wishing the Blue Jays traded for, kind of like what the Mets did the last couple of years. But he has been, even when he was in Oakland just consistent, very Mark Burley-ish kind of like stuff. At least that's the kind of pitcher he reminded me of. He's not overpowering anybody. He's like 92, 93, crazy breaking stuff, knows how to get hitters out. And I think when I was looking at his Baseball Savant page, which is the weird, stupid, oh my God, way too deep metrics in baseball land. So he had one of the lowest highest soft contact rate. That was what I wanted to say.
Highest soft contact. Okay, explain that.
So one of the weird stats that, in the wonderful world of sabermetrics that we're in, which is the crazy, like I said, way too Moneyball statistics, right? Mm-hmm. One of them is how well they barrel the baseball as hitters. And then the flip side of that is how well the pitchers avoid getting barreled. So hard contact versus a little bunt, so it's Chris Bassitt was one of the best ones on not getting barreled up 100%.
Right. It's a lot of ground balls. It's a lot of easy ground balls for your infielders. The balls that are hit to the outfielders are soft little poochers that still make it to them. Like they're not Texas leaguers. They're not, gappers. They're soft rollers that the shortstop comes in, flips up, and fires a guy out without even trying. And it was interesting because Gossman tweeted out, can't wait till you get here so you can teach me one of your 10 pitches. So,
and he says he uses 6 regularly. He's got 10 of them.
As apparently he does. I mean, you can't have 10. I don't think there are 10. But I hope that his nickname is Seabass. I mean, that has to hold some water. Like maybe get Cam Neely to throw out the first pitch when he's going to pitch the first game in a Seabass jersey. I mean, this marketing stuff writes itself.
Salt shaker.
Yeah.
So Bassitt is more of a finesse guy. So he's not, like you said, he's not going to overpower you. He's not all about the strikeout counts. He's literally going to make you hit a pitch you don't want to hit. Yeah. He's going to make you hit something you don't want to hit, and it's going to be, like you said, easily fielded.
Yeah, okay. And he throws strikes too. Like he throws a lot of strikes. He's his first pitch strike, first pitch strike pitcher, and it's all junk. His fastball is 92, 93. It's got a little bit of to what Gossman is saying is he throws kind of a slider-ish fastball. It's probably a 2-seamer with just a tiny turn on it. So it rather than if I throw this way, the natural rotation of the ball is going to be that way, right? So it's going to fall off the plate that way. The way he throws his, as he comes through and snaps his fingers, he actually snaps the other direction. And so his fastball will turn the wrong way on you. So it's super confusing. And it's a very teachable pitch. Like with Little League, we try to not have kids throwing curveballs because we don't want 14-year-olds getting Tommy Johns. But the evolution of the curveball is that the curveball has now turned into an overspin pitch like this. And if you can really spin the ball quickly this way, the ball will go and drop. It's a 12-6 curve. Barry Zito used to throw a disgusting one. If you ever kids, if you're at home and you want to hit the Google machine, check out Barry Zito. He had one of the wickedest, and Clayton Kershaw. His curveball is bonkers, and they throw them the same way. They throw a top spinning curveball, whereas you can throw that sort of slider or slurve or whatever you want to call it, and all it is just a tilted fastball. So as you come and really you let it come out just slightly turn, and it'll actually turn the other way on you. It's a really neat pitch, and it doesn't have to be fast because you can't hit it, and then when you do, it's a muffin. So.
Yeah, there hasn't been really somebody as much of a top over thrower like he has in Blue Jays recent history. Anyways, that to be that person, that's how Roy Halladay started throwing in his career until it didn't have enough movement on his pitches. So he went down to the minors, and we all know the story. Literally tore it down and built himself back up in that kind of like 3/4 ballpark. But it's like a hammer toss, man. I'm literally reposting stuff to our Twitter page at BirdwatchingGC right now, so that you can all take a peek at what some of his video looks like. The guy's nasty, and if you talk about consistent pitchers over the last like 3-4 seasons, and this is including the shortened COVID season, obviously, he just doesn't give up runs. It's slightly nuts. And he has had over the last 3 seasons, basically a sum average of 3.5 on his ERA. And one was just under, one was like right at it, and then one was just over. So we're literally talking within 3.4 to 3.6 ERA.
Which is which is a standard now, right? Like no one expects to.
If you were going to pick Johnny Average, and you wanted somebody to be the guy that's just awesome, the regular average, I would say, is probably around 4. You got a guy that's like just 0.5 underneath that earned run average there. You're talking about a guy that's approaching elite. If he had that lights out fastball, you're talking a guy that is 100% an elite pitcher, and nobody would even probably, question you on that fact. Him doing what he does and still accomplishing that without that plus velocity of a guy throwing the ball 100 miles an hour, like everybody seems to be doing in baseball these days, he is going to make a nice mix thrown in with Manoah, Barrios, and Gausman. Nice change of pace. And to that point, I have a strange feeling all 4 of them are going to feed off of each other really, really well. Because we all know that Manoah is the ace, but he's still a very damn young kid playing Major League Baseball. He's going to learn a lot from somebody that's a little bit older, like Chris Bassitt at 33, going into his 34th season. but 3 years, 63 mil, I think is what it was a solid, perfect investment, I think, for a guy like him, because he's also a pitcher. Even though that age, he really doesn't have the miles on his arm that you would expect for somebody that age. He really didn't break into Major League Baseball until 2015, 2016. So it's relatively young in baseball years.
So let me ask you this, guys, then. So we spent all this money on to get Bassitt. Was there an argument to be made that we could have given that money to Stripling? Because I remember we talked about this a few weeks ago, where we were kind of like, should we offer him a block of money to stay with Toronto? And I think there was a lot of saying, yeah, we should, but nothing seems to have happened. Is he still technically a free agent now?
No, he got signed.
Yesterday.
Oh, he got signed?
Yes.
Really? Oh, who did he sign with?
The Giants.
I think so.
Oh,
yes.
Boy.
This is one of the many reasons Jason was talking about the Giants being the sleeping giant in the National League. So
confirmed Giants.
All right. If they take Kirk or Jansen, I'm like, all right, I'm going to start cheering for the Giants.
There it is. And you better find a new I was kidding. Anyways, but to that point, to what you were mentioning, Ken, I do think that we got a sum plus with Bassitt in the midst of that.
For sure.
Interesting.
But
I think that I mean, it's an important pickup. I feel like, is even though as angry as I was with Kiermaier, and to have a swing and a miss with a number of those guys, like I said, I've really got my fingers crossed that there is some sort of a wild trade loaded in the barrel, and they've had to have this stuff happen to, and I feel like they've been too quiet as a management group. You know what I mean? Like I feel like if there was nothing left in the tank
going on, don't worry about it.
Yeah. I feel like,
there's got to be something brewing.
There must be. I'm thinking they're just setting us up, right? So we'll sign someone here, we'll sign another one here that's worth a little bit more, and then they're gonna hopefully pull the rug out from under us and sign something big, right? And my second point here from Rhonda, because she was this is almost in caps. Why is it always seems that the Blue Jays aren't willing to go after the pieces we need to take us to the next level and compete with teams like the Yankees and the Dodgers? It always feels like we're getting the hand-me-down players. Where are the young, talented players that will be around for quite some time and be valuable in more than just 1 year? And even when we get those players like Simeon, why don't we do more to keep them?
I think that one worked out okay. Yeah. Because if you think of let's go back another off season where we were trying to get Marcus Semien to stay as a Toronto Blue Jay, because I heard they offered, but it was one of those things that wasn't even in the ballpark compared to what he was getting from everybody else, especially in the length category. It was dollars short instead of, I think he got a 5 or 6 year deal from the Rangers, something like that. So if you give that money to Marcus Semien, come into this offseason, you would have been tapped out already. We would have been talking about how to trade the catchers, and that would have been probably about it.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. And even if you trade Teoscar to get a little bit of, basically Teoscar's raise paid for Chris Bassitt. So we still have money to and theoretically play with.
Don't think it's just the Jays. Like, I understand what she's saying, and I understand how believe me, I'm a Canucks fan. If anyone knows how to blow a season by not signing guys or trading good talent away, it's us. We suck. Anyways, so if you look at guys like, I mean, there's been so many guys in the last number of years that teams have taken a flyer on or teams have secured up, and they just do nothing. And, I feel like guys who have career years, when it comes down to the year that they're going to get paid, teams have to be more careful. They throw money at these guys, and the next year, I mean, almost everybody has a terrible year. The next year they have a contract year. Almost everybody. There's a few guys, like I think Springer was very good the year we picked him up, and he's continued to be good-ish, good adjacent. So, I mean, I feel like there's certainly are guys like, the Dodgers have had a few guys that they've picked up and they've remained being stars. And I mean, they picked up Joey Gallo, and he sort of went back to old Joey Gallo for a minute. And now I could probably hit the ball farther than he can at this point. That being said, there are more chances taken, but we have the Jays under a spotlight. So we don't necessarily hear about some of those real big money ones that go into the toilet for some other teams, but it happens.
To be that point, Schneider was on the Major League Baseball Network during the winter meetings, and he said they had offers into Verlander.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
They've
been after Verlander for years. They really have. The Jays
threw his only 2 no-hitters in Toronto. Might as well make him get him.
Yeah, they have pursued him for 4 years. And whether he just doesn't want to come, or whether they just don't ever come with the right amount of money, or, like Craig was saying, there's always somebody that's going to pay more for talent, right? And that's what's the problem with baseball. If they had a cap, an unbreakable cap, the teams would be totally different, and guys' salaries would be totally different. I mean,
that will never happen.
It never happened. I mean, there's too much money in it, and oddly enough, I mean, even though the attendance must be terrible in some of these places, they're still making money.
Yeah. So the Major League Baseball Players Association is probably the most powerful sports union without even questioning it. So the
NBA is close.
The NBA is definitely closing that gap, but the amount of money that's still made in advertising for baseball for 162 games is uncomparable to all the other sports. So that's the reason there's so much more money in it.
Now, Craig, as an aside, what do you think the chances of Tideman, shining through? I know we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but
I've been that guy that Ricky Tiedemann is now the Toronto Blue Jays easy number 1 prospect. He had a monster minor league season with the Blue Jays last year I got to pull his stuff up, but he, I think everybody really needs to stop worrying about the number 5 spot, because there's so much going on there past Mitch White and Yosei Kikuchi.
Yeah.
So Ricky Tiedemann is, just to be this point, if he didn't have to have Tommy John in his college season, right before the Major League Baseball draft, this guy was a first-round draft pick, and probably 100%. The first pick.
100%.
So he has the Tommy John. The Blue Jays get him. I think they either got him as a supplemental first-round pick. So after
his total for last year, or for last season, for the last 10 games of the season, I guess that he threw in, his average was 2.45. Or sorry, his ERA was 2.45. He was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wins. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3 losses.
Yeah. And he threw basically 80 innings.
Yes.
Right after Tommy John.
It's crazy, actually.
He is on the Alek Manoah fast track right now this spring. He's going to get an invite to spring training without even a glimmer of doubt, in my opinion, because the Blue Jays are going to sit there and go, should we bring him up with us? It's going to be that same conversation as bringing Daniel Norris up to be the 5th starter in 2015, who eventually lost the job to Marco Estrada because he had the dead arm and could never get around it. And then we've also found out since then that Daniel Norris is nothing better than a bullpen arm. So sorry to say, Blue Jays fans, that trade was worth it for David Price. So anyway, but Ricky Tiedemann's got that same crazy swing and miss stuff that Manoah has. He could be that guy that comes in all guns blazing in spring training and run away with a job. So, and if he's as good as Manoah was his first year, or even damn close to it, to a point where he's in that 3.5, 4 ERA something, that's pretty damn solid right there. I don't care anybody arguing that. And I don't think, looking at his paper here, what he did through A+ level in the minor leagues and AA last year, I think there's something to it. So everybody's talking about that.
I felt like it was worth mentioning.
Yeah. You just wanted to make sure you put that one on the tee for me to hit it up.
I do.
I am wearing my Bison's hat, where he will be starting.
Oh boy.
He will be playing in Buffalo to start the season at a minimum.
100% he will.
Because he has no more challenges left in New Hampshire.
Right.
So it is what it is. But to that
where
point, that's where it's at. So as far as where we go from here, if you don't do something like that, you have to go grab another free agent pitcher. The market's starting to get pretty thin for free agent pitchers. We talked about basically the best available free agents now are people like Dansby Swanson, which is still a very, very good player. But I do not see the Blue Jays offering something that's approaching any of those contracts like you just saw his colleagues get in Correa, Turner, Bogarts, because you can make the argument he's in that conversation or he's just a step back. So he's going to be pushing that kind of money that many years. I don't see the Blue Jays doing that when they haven't locked up people like Bo Bichette and Vlad Jr. That's what I'm thinking.
Interesting.
If you're going to throw a brick of money at a shortstop, even if you don't think he's going to stay at shortstop and you want to keep Bo Bichette, that's where you spend the money right now, not throwing it at the newcomer right now. But to that point, would I love to see him pay Dansby Swanson to come play second or short? Great. Do it if you can find a way to do it. But I think that's going to also irk the other guy on the other side of the second base there for you.
I don't think we want to do that.
Although maybe there'll be a chip on his shoulder to the point where he just runs with it. I don't.
Does Bo Bichette play better when he has a chip literally on his shoulder? Like, is that the
I kind of feel like he plays better angry. Kind of like when you used to throw a pitch at Jose Bautista and the next time you threw one over the plate, he just teed it up.
Interesting. Well,
if you want some really interesting fun, watch that video, by the way. There's somebody actually did it because I want to say it was Darren O'Day at the time for the Baltimore Orioles kept throwing at Jose Bautista in 2014, 2015, 2016, and he would just come up the next at bat and bang, gone, bat flip.
Yep.
That is interesting. No, I just was wondering here because I think I was watching a lot of Jays fans and like on like breakfast television, all those people there, and they're saying is that okay, what's wrong with the Jays? What should we be focused on? And when they looked at Kiermaier, I still can't pronounce his name.
You got that one right.
There we go. They're saying that should we be focusing more as opposed, because like we said, I mentioned this earlier, and I think we all agree that we were actually one of the better hitting teams of last season, right? For the last couple of seasons, I think we've been hitting the ball really well.
Yeah.
But the thing they ask is, where has that got us? Should we actually think about maybe going a more defensive route versus a more of an offensive route? And that's what I'm kind of curious, right? Because they always say defense wins games, right? Regardless of basketball, hockey, whatever, right? All the playoffs, it's all about the defense. Is that what the Jays are missing? Do you guys think? Because obviously we can hit the ball, right? So
yeah,
what do you
I'll
think?
make the argument they started doing that last year by bringing Matt Chapman in, and then you get a first baseman that wins a Gold Glove out of nowhere, and so you got two guys that are Gold Glove caliber players on each side of your infield right now.
Yeah.
George Springer won a Gold Glove, but he obviously couldn't stay in center field long enough all the time consistently to really pay off defensively, which is why we've talked about it many times on this show, guys. Get him to one of the corners and make sure he stays healthy. Get another center fielder. But right now, the biggest problem is they don't have that other outfielder. So,
yes. And I think what killed us last year, like if we're going to make a comparison about last year into what we're hoping for this year, I think the thing that killed us was mid-season, mid-relief. So we went through 2 or 3 months there where it was an open faucet. It didn't matter who started. It didn't matter what happened in that start. As soon as you got to a certain part in our bullpen, it was just the faucet was open and they could not stop it. They were throwing meatballs down the middle, and when they got worse, the pitches got worse. And so it almost got comical for a little while where it didn't matter who they threw out there. They couldn't get a save or any kind of traction going into those other innings. And so the Jays are very similar, or were very similar last year to the Edmonton Oilers of this year, where the Oilers only want to outscore their problems. They don't want to fix their goaltending. They don't want to fix their poor defense. They don't want to fix the fact that they don't have any heart. They've got the two best players in the league, and when you put them on, they score 80% of the time they're out there, something ridiculous like that. So their theory, and it was always the sort of, even when the Oilers were just destroying everyone, that was their theory as well. We're just going to outscore you flat out. You get 6, we'll get 10. You get 2, we're going to get 8. It didn't matter to them. They could care less. And so what the Jays need, and I mean, I feel like, again, I think we're still missing that go to all the time, middle or high inning reliever that, there's a potential for a bunch of them that are out there. And I still feel like that's probably the most important thing of getting us over the hump, because I mean, guys are always going to hit. You don't make the majors if you can't hit. It's just a fact of life. So whether you go into a slump or whatever, you're always going to come back around, and other guys on your team are always going to pick you up. So it's going to come down to, who you can get in those late innings to help you get over the hump and make sure that you are closing games or setting things up for your closer to have success.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All I was going to say, what happened to the days of Dwayne Ward and Tom Hankey? The best setup reliever combo I think I've ever remember. Just bring back Tom Hankey and Dwayne Ward would be fine.
Yeah. Now
Dwayne Ward looks like he could still eat people. Just
it's interesting you would say that, because I feel like Craig's been sitting on his hat on something over there that we kind of discussed. I think this is a good lead into it. What do you think, Craigers?
Yeah, I think we were going to talk about this anyways, and the big thing was the Blue Jays still had the surplus of catching, and I still can't wrap my head around how you can carry all three of them and hope to get to the promised land, because I'm all for having two crazy good offensive catchers, and I don't have a problem with that. But the problem is all three of them probably should be starting. So you got to do something with it. And one of the rumors that I know one of you threw out on our chat this morning, and I've seen it too, was the fact that there has been a lot of talk about Liam Hendricks for the Blue Jays nation last year. We talked about it last week during the winter meetings show, and the rumor has it they're actually looking for a catcher, which I was a little shocked by, because they have some good young talented ones, but maybe they're just too far off, or they don't see them as they can compete in this window that they've already opened without getting somebody now kind of thing. So the rumor was that there was a possible trades involving Danny Jansen for Liam Hendricks being the main pieces of the trade. There might be some other pieces to that. Who knows? But if that's a chance to leverage something that we could use, I would think that because of Liam Hendricks' crazy expensive contract over the next few years, that's on paper, not apples to apples. We might get one of those good prospects out of that trade too from the White Sox, just to compensate the talent for money ratio. Because right now it's all money coming with a really good player for a guy that's dirt cheap and under control for the next 2-3 seasons.
Yep.
With Danny Jansen. Yep. So the cost benefit there is you're trading talented guys, but the Blue Jays are inheriting this pile. So you need to trade me back with the pile, something to get it back to here. And it's probably going to be prospect capital. And to that point, Ken, you mentioned it. Rhonda's sitting here going, if we can't get free agents, build the farm. Get the pipeline back. And I agree with that, being the minor league, not that I am. And there is something to be said about that. If you think the team right now is good enough, if you get this last outfield spot, because that's my current issue with where this team sits, just Kevin Kiermaier cannot be your everyday, cannot be relied on to be an everyday player. So you got to find somebody to fill that outfield. So if that doesn't come over in that same trade, that's how it works, I think. But I don't see the White Sox throwing like Andrew Vaughn, their prime young outfielder, flipping that. Maybe what about if they were to look at Hendricks and a guy like Johnny Cueto? To that point, that spells success, though. But that's a lot of money still coming in that tipping.
And sorry, how much money do we actually have to play with to try to sign free agents or anything like that? Is it a lot?
Ballpark, the Blue Jays were saying they're probably going to sail over the $200 million team thing again this season. I want to say if you were looking at them on paper, they're somewhere in the 180 ballpark. So they had the money allegedly to throw at somebody expensive but to that point, over the next few years, they're also going to want to use that room and that money to pay their main guys.
Yeah.
So there's the catch.
Interesting.
The one benefit they do have after this season, they don't pay Hyunjin Ryu anymore. So there is money after the season coming too.
Is he not playing next season?
He had Tommy John surgery, so he's a wild card at this point.
All right. So explain to me the Tommy John. So that sounds like a very bad injury to be having.
They take a ligament that you screw up here in your elbow, and no, that's not what my scar's from. But it's a very similar spot. But they basically put one in from that's a leg tendon in there instead. And the reason it's called Tommy John surgery is the first successful athlete was a pitcher named Tommy John that recovered from this surgery. It was a new process. I want to say early 80s. And now almost Major League Baseball pitchers almost come back better than they did before.
Yeah. I mean,
now they have a leg tendon in there.
It's the thing. If you look back at a few of the guys, Justin Verlander is by far the biggest success story of Tommy John's. Twice. He said it twice. Every time he's come back and thrown the ball harder. So it's one of those things where, Tommy John's is an important surgery and it is necessary when you blow that tendon. And anyone that's wondering, as live something sometimes happens, that's my dog Kona.
You haven't heard mine all show either. Don't worry about it.
That's probably a light that just went on 8 blocks away from our house.
Maybe they're trying to tell us something. Should I check Twitter, see if something happened? Hey, Lassie, did the Blue Jays sign somebody? Or is Timmy trapped in a well?
Yeah, forget it. Leave him in the well.
Leave him.
So, to that point, Ken, Ryu, because it usually is somewhere in the 8 to 12 month rehab time frame. It's usually in the middle there, around 10 to 12. Just to get be able to pitch as many innings as Major League Baseball pitchers pitch. They have to have that stamina part too. It's not just, hey, my arm happens to let me throw 100.
Yeah.
So the guess was that Ryu he had the surgery 2 months in last year, something like that. So you're at the earliest, you're thinking 2 months into this season. So that means he misses spring training, all this other stuff, to the point where he would be possibly getting ready to come back for a return. And if you're talking that, the Blue Jays can't expect to get him back at any kind of guy that he was. You have to start looking elsewhere. If you get him back, great, but he might only be a bullpen guy at that point, which him being a lefty, that might be not a bad deal.
Just to ease him into it, right?
Correct. But then you only have him the rest of the season under contract, because for him, it's just unfortunate bad timing and bad luck, because that's the end of his career or his current contract that he signed with the Toronto Blue Jays is after this season. Jason, I think you muted yourself.
You may be able to ink Ryu for a couple of years. I do find that when guys do have Tommy Johns, they tend to stick with the team that paid for them to have Tommy Johns. So
yeah, there is that.
May be able to say, hey, we want a couple of years out of you here. We'll offer you $10 million a year. I don't even know what he's making right now, but to stay,
it's not bad. It's a lot more than that.
It's 20 million, I think.
Maybe you throw a bit more at him and hope you can get him to Verlander status, where he does come back and he is throwing the ball harder. He's a great pitcher. And
to that point, they are going to get a little bit of a preview, because worst case scenario, he's hanging out at the player development center this whole time in Florida.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of having that wonderful complex out in Dunedin that I wish I have gotten a chance to visit. I haven't been to Dunedin since COVID, and that's when they built the damn thing. Yeah. So
yeah,
I used to go every spring training, just hang out with all the announcers and everything down there. It was a good time.
We should do an episode there, Craig. We should do an episode there one day.
Yeah,
I think that would be fun if we all did that one time, because I know where all the fun places are. I still have friends that live there. Yeah. I have some friends that graduated that picked up and moved down there and just happened to land where my Blue Jays are. I was like, you guys suck. I'm so jealous. But to that point, that is a possibility that he could come back and be a bullpen guy at the end of the season, or maybe he does have enough, to be, if one of the 1,000,001 stars that we've been chit-chatting about here actually doesn't pan out, that he could be the next in line. Who knows? This is baseball. Anything can happen. So,
and again, we don't get the benefit of seeing from the inside. And I think with baseball, different than a lot of other sports, the inside knowledge is so vast, and you find out so little as being a fan of the team. Like, they really keep things locked up until you need to know. It's reminiscent of when the playoffs come in any sport and they give you a lower body injury.
Yeah.
Baseball is one giant lower body injury. Like, they just say nothing. And we've seen guys come back faster and faster and faster from Tommy Johns lately. You may be talking about Ryu coming back, late spring training, and then getting some work in the bullpen, or some work in Buffalo, and then right back in. And, fingers crossed, because a guy like him changes everything. Everything you're doing completely changes, and then everything we've talked about here is moot, and they can go sign an outfielder or anybody they kind of feel like.
And there is nothing in this equation that's saying he can't be the best Ryu that we haven't even seen yet.
No, nothing.
So there is nothing that says he will grab that. Remember right when he signed with us, he was like the best thing since sliced bread, and then we slowly saw it kind of like trail off. And I think that was just his stuff doesn't carry as much, but for all we know, he gets that +2 miles per hour on his fastball from doing this. Might be 100%. The difference maker in the world for him. Who knows? 100%. To get him back to what he was like in his prime with the Dodgers when he was, singing Gangnam Style in the locker room with Clayton Kershaw. Best video ever, by the way. Check that out. It's a great one. It made the MLB Cut 4 stuff at one point. I can't remember when, but it was like that last year he was with the Dodgers. They're all just sitting there, and he's got the full sunglasses on, the suit. And
where was that personality that we didn't see him in Toronto? I didn't hear too much about him that.
Well, yeah, and to that point, it seems like a character too, with other than him and Manoah hanging out.
and him and Vladdy, like they were like two long lost brothers beating each other up in the dog. Don't you remember when Vladdy hit him with the bat and they body checked each other into the bat rack? And I mean, he looks like hilarious.
They look like hockey players that were just
Canada's rubbing off on him. That's all I'm saying. Man.
Yes.
But at that point, remember, Vladdy's Canadian.
That's what I'm saying. Vladdy's Canadian. He's taking the Canadian culture right to
Ryu.
Yeah.
But to that point, that's another reason we probably won't have any effing clue what's going on with Ryu, because he actually still lives in Korea. He has a place in Canada, I guess, but he hadn't been there, as from what the rumors sound like. So he's probably going to do a lot of that training and rehab with his his home country. So if that's happening, we definitely won't hear anything about it.
Yeah.
So to that point, though, flipping away from the Ryu conversation, which was a good little side segue here as we wrap up the show. Is there anything else rumor-wise you guys have heard of? I keep hearing Brian Reynolds with the Pirates. I still keep hearing Liam Hendricks. The outfielder thing has to happen. And I do think the biggest thing is catchers for whoever. The Guardians might enter the race because the Guardians missed out on every catcher they wanted, similar to the Blue Jays. So
who do they have that we could use? The Guardians.
They have one of the best plethoras of talent in the minor leagues. So I wouldn't be surprised if they have a guy that's ready to be the next guy up kind of situation and still be able to do it. I don't know how they've been doing what they've been doing over the last few years, but they seem to find that next guy up better than the Rays have done over the last 3 years.
Yeah, 100%. Well, so Craig, as a quick aside, you want to know, I think I've got it close to figured out as to what the secret of the Rays and the Orioles and a few other teams have unlocked is you don't necessarily have to have the best baseball player at that position. If you have the most athletic person at that position, you'll win games. The Rays
find a place for them.
Yeah, the Rays are unbelievably athletic, possibly the most athletic team I've ever seen at this point right now. And losing Kiermaier is a big feather because they can put some young stud out there again, and off they go. Orioles have figured that out. The Guardians have figured that out. And when teams start to figure it out that the most athletic guy is going to get you to the promised land, I mean, they certainly wouldn't have won you the World Series this year. None of those teams were beating the Astros. The Astros were unbeatable.
A monster.
But, I mean, the Phillies are athletic but old. It's
and they flipped some of that too. Get some younger guys. So crazy athletic Trey Turner.
Yes.
Just saying. So, but I think you got something to the sauce there, Jason. I really do. Don't need to get angry about it.
that was the Aaron Judge gavel falling, I think.
There it is. As long as it fell somewhere on the Yankees' hopes and dreams, I'm all right with it. There it is.
There we go.
So on that note, boys, it's been a great show, and I'm glad to have you. Obviously, Jason, we're going to have on location next week. So he's gonna find a nice spot to have the coolest freaking podcasted fantasy ever.
My hope is that I'm gonna be in Maui. And my hope is where we stay in Maui, there's like 3 really awesome places that I could broadcast from. And so I'm going to hope that the Wi-Fi works out and all that fun stuff. And when we get there, my buddy Cam and I are going to test out a few sites on golf courses. Of course, I mean, this is all research that I'm doing. I'm going to go check out the Shane
mid-golf game like Kevin Millar did for Intentional Talk one year.
Yep. I'm going to go check out the Shane Victorino field.
There you go.
Maui. I'm going to try to find Shane himself, the Flying Hawaiian. We'll see if we can. I know he's there. He lives there full time. So, it's going to be a lot of fun, I think. And, hopefully we've got some more stuff to talk about, because it'd be incredibly boring to just, talk about the scenery behind me rather than
we're going to talk about
you can talk about the scenery. I want to see it.
Yeah. We'll talk about your backswing, see how it works. So to that point, we also may have a guest with us next week in Rhonda. So we'll see what happens and see what goes on. But till next week, Blue Jays fans, make sure you click us on anywhere you get your podcasting pleasures from, Spotify, Google Podcasts, any of those wonderful spots. Make sure you join us for the live show. We see you. There's a little ticker up on the top that we get to see everything. Make sure you join the conversation. This chat window is for you. We are here every week. We will be back to our normal Tuesdays at 7:00 Eastern time, or whatever Maui time is at that point. I'm not sure. But to that, we are here. We are your Toronto Blue Jays barroom chat. Let's talk. Let's have some beers, and let's hope this team makes it to the next level like we all keep hoping. So until next week, fellas, 2 claps and a Ric Flair.
You got it.
1, 2, 3. Woo! Let's go, Blue Jays. Make something happen.
Yeah. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to the Jay Bird Watching Podcast. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch at BirdwatchingGC, and our YouTube channel. If you want to support the show and get extra content, please consider joining to our Patreon at patreon.com/birdwatchinggc. Go Jays, go.